Welcome back, everyone. We're doing a deep dive today, and it's a fascinating one. We're looking at online trolling, but not the way you might think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going way beyond, just those annoying comments or the sort of in-your-face stuff.
Right.
It gets a lot deeper, a lot more complex than that. Actually, almost like an industry.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to be pulling a lot of this from a recent YouTube video essay. It's by DJ Peach Cobbler, and the title is pretty provocative. It's, "I am begging you to stop caring." So,
interesting.
yeah, and we'll get into all that. But the idea here is to kind of unpack how trolling has evolved, from those kind of individual, annoying things,
Right.
into something that has real-world consequences, even financial consequences. And honestly, it's something that I think all of us have experienced. You get riled up about something online, and then later you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Did I just play into something? So,
Good question.
yeah, we're going to get into that.
I think one of the things that's fascinating about this whole topic, and DJ Peach Cobbler touches on this too, is how the trolls are really good at tapping into basic human psychology.
Yeah. Oh, well.
They're almost running this massive social experiment on all of us,
Right.
without us even realizing it.
Well, that's the thing, right? You don't even realize it's happening. I think DJ Peach Cobbler, he makes this point that it all starts with, understanding the goal of the troll, right? It's not about being mean for the sake of being mean. There's actually something else going on.
Yeah, there's a purpose behind it.
And he uses this fishing analogy, which I think is really helpful. Have you heard this one before?
Yeah, the idea that trolls are essentially casting out bait, right?
Yeah.
They're not really interested in the bait itself. They're interested in the reaction that it provokes. So they're trying to get you to bite, essentially.
And it's so interesting, right? Because when you think about it that way, it reframes the whole thing. It's not about the initial comment. It's not about the, whatever the content is. It's about what happens after. It's about that frenzy of engagement.
It's about the fight, right? The argument. That's what they're going for.
That's what they want. They want the back and forth. They want the shares, the comments, all of that.
And like you were saying, it taps into those basic human instincts, right? We have this need to defend ourselves,
Right.
To correct wrongs, to stand up for what we believe in.
It's like it's hardwired into us.
Yeah, and the trolls, they know exactly how to exploit that.
And it's gotten, I think more sophisticated, more organized over time. Like DJ Peach Cobbler, he actually has a term for it. He calls it the trolling industrial complex.
Wow.
Because it's not just these isolated incidents anymore.
No, it's a system.
Right. It's a system. There are different layers, different players involved, and it's all kind of working together.
Well, and think about even just the algorithms that social media platforms use, right? They're designed to keep us engaged.
Right. Keep us on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to show us content that's going to trigger those strong emotions,
Nice.
Whether it's anger, outrage, excitement.
So basically, they're incentivized to promote that kind of content.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Because the more engagement, the more clicks, the more shares,
Yeah,
the more
yeah,
ad revenue.
yeah.
So it's like this vicious cycle.
It is, and it's not just social media, right? I mean, traditional media outlets play a role in this as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, how often do we see news headlines that are specifically designed to provoke a reaction?
All the time. It's clickbait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's this complex ecosystem where outrage equals clicks and clicks equal money, and everyone benefits except us, the audience.
Right, yeah.
We're the ones who are left feeling drained and angry and polarized.
Well, I mean, I think DJ Peach Cobbler uses a really good example, kind of a perfect example of this. And it's the Jake Paul boxing matches.
Oh, interesting.
So, I don't know how much you followed that whole saga.
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, but millions of people tuned into these matches. And it wasn't because they were diehard boxing fans.
Right.
It was because they hated Jake Paul.
They wanted to see him lose.
Exactly.
Right.
And all that hate watching, all that negativity, it translated into millions of dollars for Jake Paul.
Wow.
So it's a cynical strategy, right?
It is.
But it's undeniably effective.
Right.
And this is the thing. It's not limited to any one side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, that's important to point out.
Yeah. We see this happening everywhere. DJ Peach Cobbler calls it this casting bait phenomenon.
Okay.
Where basically they're using controversy to
Right.
generate attention. We see it with certain casting choices in movies and TV shows.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
They'll make these deliberately provocative decisions, and it sparks all this online debate. And then, of course, that's free publicity.
Right.
So it's almost like they're reverse engineering outrage. They're figuring out exactly what buttons to push to get people talking and arguing and ultimately, consuming their content.
Yeah. And it's working. I mean, we're falling for it every time.
Well, and I think, this brings us to some of the case studies that DJ Peach Cobbler dives into.
Okay.
And he starts with Andrew Tate.
Okay.
Now, love him or hate him.
Oh, yeah. He's a controversial one.
He's very controversial. But there's no denying that he has mastered this art of trolling as self-promotion. Like, remember that tweet where he said he'd never seen Star Wars?
Oh, yeah.
It was like,
what a classic bait.
It was such obvious bait. Like, it was designed to be divisive, and it worked brilliantly.
Yeah, it got everyone talking.
Exactly.
Like, he's playing the role of the heel in professional wrestling,
Yeah.
The villain who thrives on the audience's anger.
It's all part of the performance, and the more we react, the more we feed into it.
Exactly. He's giving us what we want, whether we realize it or not.
Right. But, it's not just celebrities like Tate who are employing these tactics.
Right.
There are tons of content creators, influencers, even politicians.
Oh, absolutely.
Who are using very similar strategies to gain notoriety and to build a following. One example that DJ Peach Cobbler focuses on is, he calls him this conservative TikToker.
Okay.
And this guy has built his entire persona around, like, provoking reactions. He's constantly posting content that's designed to trigger both his supporters and his detractors.
So he's playing both sides.
Well, it's more like he knows what's going to get people riled up, and he just keeps doing it.
I mean, that's smart from a strategic standpoint.
It is. And what's interesting about this case is that he's figured out a way to weave this trolling into his business model.
Oh, how so?
So he's simultaneously generating all this outrage, right? But he's also promoting his conservative dating app.
Oh, interesting. So he's using the controversy to drive traffic to his business.
Exactly. And it's working.
Yeah.
And then you add in his connection to January 6th and former President Trump.
Oh, wow.
That just adds to his notoriety, helps him stay in the public eye.
It's like a perfect storm of controversy.
It really is. I think it's a perfect example of how the line between trolling and content creation is just becoming more and more blurred, especially in our current media landscape.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to tell them apart sometimes.
Right. And that's what makes this whole conversation so important.
Okay.
Because, we need to be aware of what's happening. We need to be able to spot these tactics so we don't get played.
I agree. It's all about media literacy these days.
Exactly.
Being able to critically analyze the information that's coming at us from all directions.
Because otherwise we're just pawns in someone else's game.
Yeah, we're letting them control the narrative.
Right. And we'll talk more about that in the next part of our deep dive. We're going to get into some practical tips for recognizing and resisting these tactics. But for now, just think about the things we've talked about today and see if you can start to spot some of these patterns in your own online experience.
It's a good exercise, and it might just surprise you what you find.
Yeah, I think it will. So we'll catch you in the next part.
Sounds good. It really makes you think, how much of what we see online is really just,
Oh, totally.
like manufactured outrage.
It's almost like we're being manipulated and we don't even realize it.
Right.
And the scary part is that we're often the ones who are playing right into their hands.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, what do we do about it? How do we actually break free from this cycle?
Well, I mean, one of the first steps is just recognizing when we're being baited.
Okay, yeah.
It's about becoming aware of the tactics that these trolls are using to try to trigger us.
Yeah, like, how do you even do that?
Well, I think, DJ Peach Cobbler, he talks about some specific red flags to look out for. Things like deliberately misrepresenting facts,
Okay.
using inflammatory language, resorting to personal attacks. These are all things that are designed to get under our skin, to kind of cloud our judgment and make us more likely to react emotionally.
Right. It's like they're trying to bypass our rational brain.
Yeah, exactly.
But just go straight for the gut.
Yeah. And once we're in that emotional state, we're much more likely to say or do things that we'll later regret.
Yeah. It's like they want us to make bad decisions.
Right. And those bad decisions, they can have real world consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we've seen it time and time again. People losing their jobs, relationships,
Yeah.
all because they got caught up in some online drama.
So it's like recognizing those tactics is the first step.
Yeah.
But is there anything else we can do?
Well, he also talks about this tactic called sealioning.
Sealioning.
Sealioning. Have you heard of this?
I don't think so.
So basically, it's where someone pretends to be genuinely curious about your viewpoint,
Okay.
but then they just bombard you with endless questions and demands for evidence,
Uh-huh.
And it's really just a way of wearing you down, derailing the conversation, and making you look bad in the process.
Oh, I see.
It's a very insidious tactic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it seems innocent at first, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that.
they're just asking questions.
Right, but it's not about genuine dialogue. It's about control.
It's about winning.
Exactly.
And then there's like, is it concern trolling?
Oh, yeah, concern trolling.
Where they pretend to agree with you,
Yeah.
but then they raise all these concerns that are really just thinly veiled criticisms.
Right.
Just designed to sow doubt.
Yeah, to make you question your own beliefs.
It's so manipulative.
It is, and it's everywhere.
So, like, once you start to see these patterns, does it get easier to, like, detach from your emotional pull?
Yeah, it's like, those strings behind a puppet show? Once you see how the illusion works, it loses its power over you.
That's a good analogy.
It's about recognizing the game that's being played.
Right. So, okay, you can see the tactics and the patterns.
Right.
But then what? Like, what do you do?
Well, another really important piece of advice that I think DJ Peach Cobbler gives is to really question your own motives, you know?
Right.
Like, why are you engaging in this conversation in the first place?
That's a good point.
Yeah. Are you genuinely interested in having, like, a productive dialogue? Or are you just trying to, like, score points or feed your ego?
Yeah, because sometimes I think we get caught up in wanting to be right.
Yeah.
Or wanting to, like, win the argument.
Exactly. And that's exactly what the trolls want. They want to see us get riled up.
So it's like almost better not to engage at all.
Sometimes, yes. And I think it's helpful to ask yourself, like, is this actually going to change anyone's mind? Or am I just adding to the noise?
Right. It's like, is this actually accomplishing anything?
Exactly. And even if you do feel passionately about an issue, there are much more constructive ways to channel your energy. Like, you could volunteer for a cause you believe in.
No.
You could donate to an organization. You could have a thoughtful conversation with someone in your real life,
Right.
It's about focusing on actions that create positive change rather than getting sucked into that vortex of online negativity.
I like that. It's like, choose your battles.
Yeah, exactly. Choose where you're going to spend your energy.
I think sometimes it's easy to just get swept up in it, right?
It is, and it can be really draining.
Mentally, emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So it's about protecting yourself as much as it is about anything else.
But let's be honest, like, it's not always easy to resist the urge to clap back.
Oh, I know.
Especially when someone's being, like, deliberately provocative.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you not?
It takes practice.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of self-awareness. You have to be really in tune with your own emotions and triggers.
Right. And DJ Peach Cobbler, he acknowledges this, right? He's like, look, it takes practice.
Yeah, he says it's like building a mental muscle.
It's a discipline.
Yeah.
To just be able to, like, walk away.
And he also stresses the importance of giving yourself grace, Like, we're all human.
Right.
We're all going to slip up from time to time.
Yeah.
No one's perfect.
Right. The key is to learn from those experiences and try to do better next time.
Okay, so let's say you do engage. Like, how do you do it in a way that doesn't just feed the troll?
Well, that's the challenge, right?
Right.
I think the key is to try to avoid personal attacks.
Okay.
Stick to the facts as much as possible.
Yeah.
And try to remain calm and respectful, even when you disagree,
Right.
It's about refusing to stoop to their level.
And instead, like, modeling the kind of behavior you actually want to see.
Exactly.
Blow up online.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If everyone did that, the internet would be a very different place.
But, there are also those times when, like, silence isn't an option, right?
Right.
Like, when you see injustice happening and you feel like you have to speak out.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. I mean, there are definitely times when we have a moral obligation to speak up.
Yeah.
Even if it means engaging in difficult conversations. But
even then, like, can you do it strategically?
Absolutely.
Like, how do you do that?
Well, I think it's about understanding that sometimes the most effective way to counter misinformation or hate speech is to calmly and factually debunk it. You don't have to get into this emotionally charged back and forth.
Right.
Just present your argument clearly, calmly.
Yeah.
Use evidence to support your claims and avoid that inflammatory language.
Because ultimately, like, what are you trying to achieve?
Right. Are you trying to change someone's mind?
Yeah.
Are you trying to educate people?
Or just trying to, like, get that, like, emotional release of yelling at someone. Right. So it's about being really intentional with your communication.
Okay. So we've talked about recognizing bait, questioning our motives, finding constructive outlets,
Yeah.
engaging thoughtfully. Like, what's the bigger takeaway here? What does this all mean?
I think for me, it's about reclaiming our agency.
That
It's
is-
about recognizing that we have a choice in how we engage online.
Yeah.
We don't have to be passive consumers of information,
Right.
constantly reacting to whatever's thrown at us.
We can be more intentional,
Yeah,
more discerning,
exactly.
more thoughtful.
It's about understanding that our attention is a valuable resource, and we should be mindful of where we choose to direct it.
I like that a lot. It's almost like, we've been sleepwalking through our online lives.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Just letting the algorithms and trolls kind of dictate our emotions, our reactions.
And that's precisely what DJ Peach Cobbler is trying to wake us up to, With this video essay, he's urging us to be more conscious, more deliberate in how we engage online.
And that brings us back to that provocative title, right? I am begging you to stop caring.
Yeah.
It's like, what does he even mean by that?
Well, it's not about apathy, right?
Right.
It's not about ignoring injustice. It's about being selective with our outrage.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply choosing and not to engage.
Especially, I guess, when you know that your reaction is exactly what the troll wants.
Exactly. Because when we feed into that outrage, we're not only contributing to their success, we're also depleting our own mental and emotional energy.
Right. Yeah. Like you were saying earlier, it's draining.
It is. Think about it this way. Like every time you get riled up by a troll, you're essentially giving them a little piece of your peace of mind.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like we're handing over our power, letting them control our emotions and dictate our online experience.
And that's why I guess DJ Peach Cobbler's message is so important.
It is. He's reminding us that we have a choice. We
Yeah.
can choose to opt out of the outrage machine.
It's not easy, though, right?
No, it's not easy, especially in a world that's designed to keep us constantly stimulated and engaged, but
But it's possible.
it is.
And it starts with, like, what? Small steps.
Yeah, small steps, like becoming more aware of the content that we're consuming,
Okay.
asking ourselves, is this adding value to my life?
Yeah.
Is this making me feel informed and empowered or just drained and angry?
And if it's the latter,
Yeah, if it's the latter, maybe it's time to unfollow, unsubscribe.
just scroll by.
Exactly. And instead, we can choose to focus on content that inspires us, educates us, connects us with others in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I like it.
It's about curating a more positive and fulfilling online experience for ourselves.
And it's not just about what we consume,
No, it's also about how we interact.
right? Like how you respond to things.
Exactly. We can choose to engage in thoughtful discussions, to share our perspectives respectfully, to build bridges instead of burning them down.
Yeah, like be the change you want to see.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of online trolling, what are some of your biggest takeaways? Like what really resonated with you?
I think for me, it's just this realization that we have more power than we think.
Yeah.
We can choose to reclaim our attention, to resist manipulation, and to create a more positive online experience for ourselves and others.
It's a call to action.
It is.
To be more mindful,
Yes.
more discerning, more intentional.
But to remember that sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply choosing to walk away.
Go touch some grass, read a book, have a conversation.
Exactly. Do anything but let yourself be played by the outrage machine.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll catch you next time.